The email arrived at 2:17 local time, a sliver of digital light in the oppressive dark of the FOB. The subject line was sterile, efficient, utterly my father's voice in text form. Update on the estate. I was on my third consecutive 20-hour shift. My eyes gritty with dust and exhaustion, the air thick with the smells of diesel and stale coffee. I almost deleted it. Another one of his pronouncements, probably about some minor investment or a complaint about property taxes. But something made my thumb hover, then tap. The message was short, 4 sentences. Alex, hope you are well. A quick update. We have finalized the sale of your grandmother's house. The upkeep was becoming too much, and we had to address some outstanding expenses from her care. The remainder of the proceeds will be helping Mark and his family with a down payment on a proper home. We knew you would understand. You're the strong one. I read it once, then a second time. The words didn't assemble into a coherent thought. They felt like shrapnel, each one embedding itself in a different part of my mind. The hum of the generator outside the tent seemed to grow louder, then fade to nothing. My breath caught in my chest. The sale of your grandmother's house. It wasn't his house to sell. It was my house. My home. The place I was supposed to come back to. The place I was supposed to be still. A corporal nudged my arm, his face a blur of youthful concern. Sir, you good, sir? I looked at him, but I saw the front porch of that little clapboard house, the porch swing creaking in the summer breeze. I saw my grandmother's hands, flour-dusted, kneading dough on the worn butcher block counter. I saw the pencil marks on the doorframe, tracking my height from a boy to a man about to leave for basic training. Sir? He asked again, his voice pulling me back to the suffocating heat of the Afghan night. I blinked, the screen of my phone swimming back into focus. We knew you would understand. The sentence was a casual execution. Not a question, but a verdict. My strength, the thing the army had honed, and my family had always praised, had just been used as the justification for the most profound theft of my life. I didn't answer the corporal. I didn't slam my fist on the table. I stood up, walked out of the tent into the cold desert air, and felt the foundation of my world crack. Not with a bang, with the quiet, clean snap of a betrayal so absolute it felt like a law of physics had been broken. Weeks earlier, before the deployment, I'd been home on leave. It was the last time I saw her, my grandmother. She was frail, propped up on pillows in the living room of that same house, the air smelling of lavender and old books. The house was her universe, and she was its sun. My father and mother were there, fussing with her medication, their movements brisk and impatient. My brother, Mark, had stopped by with his wife, their kids leaving a trail of cracker crumbs on the heirloom rug. They stayed for exactly 17 minutes. I timed it. He just has so much on his plate, my mother whispered to me in the kitchen, as if Mark's stress was a national crisis. His business is expanding. They need a bigger house. You know how it is. I didn't. My world was a rucksack, a rifle, and the promise of this place when I came back. After they left, I sat with Grandma. She gripped my hand, her fingers a delicate cage of bones. Don't you let them, she'd rasped, her voice thin as onion skin. Don't you let your father talk you out of this place. It's not for him. It's not for your brother's next bad idea. It's for you, Alex. A place to land. A place to be still. It was a promise she had made 100 times. When I was a boy, helping her in the garden, she'd point to the big oak tree. That's your tree. It'll be here when you're an old man. When I enlisted, she stood on the porch, her face brave, and said, Go do what you have to do. This house will be waiting. It wasn't about the monetary value. It was about having an anchor in a world that was trying to pull me apart. My family saw it differently. To my father, a man who measured worth in square footage and stock portfolios, the house was an underperforming asset. To my brother, it was a pool of equity he felt entitled to swim in. I was the reliable one, the strong one, which in our family's language meant the one who requires no investment. Mark was the golden child, the charming, handsome screw-up who was always one brilliant idea away from bankruptcy. His failures were treated as charming detours on the road to greatness. My successes were simply expected. When he crashed his BMW, it was my savings, a loan he never acknowledged, that paid for the repairs. My father brokered the deal. Mark's under a lot of pressure, Alex. You're disciplined. You can build it back up. He needs this. I didn't argue. I didn't protest. I just transferred the money. That was my role. The shock absorber. Now, standing in the Afghan dust, the memory of my grandmother's words was a fresh wound. Don't you let them. I had let them. I had been 1,000 miles away, trusting them to honor a dying woman's wish, trusting them to see me as a son and not a resource. That was my mistake. I had mistaken obligation for love. I tried to call my father. The call went straight to a pre-recorded voice telling me the subscriber was unavailable. I sent a text. We need to talk about the house. Now. Hours crawled by. A reply finally came, not from my father, but from my mother. Alex, please don't be upset. Your father did what he thought was best. It's too complicated for a text. Just focus on your mission and stay safe. We love you. It was a dismissal wrapped in a Hallmark card. The casual condescension of it, the assumption that I was a child who could be placated with a pat on the head, made something cold and hard begin to form in my gut. I called Mark. He answered on the third ring, his voice loud over the sound of children laughing. "Hey, bro, what's up?" he said, his cheerfulness a slap in the face. "The house, Mark. What the hell happened to Grandma's house?" There was a pause. I heard him move into a quieter room. "Oh, yeah, Dad mentioned he emailed you. Look, man, don't get worked up. It was the right move. The place was a money pit. The roof was shot. The plumbing was ancient. Dad handled it. It's for the best, trust me." "For the best for who, Mark? For you?" "Hey, come on," he said, his voice taking on a defensive edge. "We needed this. The kids need a yard. My business is taking off. This is a good thing for the family. You're always so dramatic." My things were in that attic, Mark. Everything I own that isn't in this damn country. Another pause. "Oh, right. Well, we did an estate sale. Cleared everything out. I'm sure it's fine. Dad probably has your stuff in storage somewhere." He didn't sound sure at all. He sounded like he hadn't even thought of it. "We knew you would understand." My father's words echoed in my head. They hadn't just sold my future. They had erased my past. They had thrown my life on the curb like a bag of trash because my brother needed a bigger yard. The rage I had been holding back started to rise, hot and acidic. But before I could speak, before I could unleash the fury coiling in my stomach, the alert siren began to blare across the base, a high, piercing shriek that cut through everything. Mark was still talking, something about market value and opportunity, but his voice was drowned out. Someone was shouting my name. "Sir, we're rolling out!" I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say anything. I just hung up the phone and ran toward the sound of the waiting engine, the cold fury in my chest, now a perfect, clear diamond of purpose. They thought I was strong. They had no idea. The world dissolved into a flash of white light and a sound that wasn't a sound, but a physical blow. It was a pressure wave that hit my Humvee and turned steel into confetti. I remember the sensation of flying, a weightless, silent moment suspended between one reality and the next. Then came the impact, a brutal reunion with the earth that shattered bone and tore muscle. I was awake for all of it. I remember the acrid smell of explosives, the screaming of my men, the sight of my own leg bent at an angle it was never meant to take. My last conscious thought before the darkness took me was not of my family, not of the pain. It was a single, crystal clear thought. They didn't even leave me the tree. I woke up in Landstuhl, Germany. The ceiling was white, the air sterile, the pain a living entity tethered to my body. A nurse with kind eyes told me I was lucky. Shrapnel had shredded my lower leg, but the surgeons had saved it. "You have a long road ahead," she said, her voice soft. "But you're strong." That word again. It felt like a curse. The calls home from that hospital bed were a masterclass in avoidance. My mother would answer, her voice tight with a forced cheerfulness. "Oh, Alex, sweetheart, you sound so much better," she'd say, after I'd just told her I was facing another debridement surgery. When I tried to bring up the house, the subject was changed with expert speed. "We can talk about all that when you're home. Right now, your father is just swamped helping Mark and Jennifer move into their new place. It's a madhouse over there. Their new place. Bought with my inheritance. The injustice of it was a constant low-grade fever. I tried my father once. He was clipped, businesslike. "Alex, your focus needs to be on your recovery. We handled the estate. It's done. Fretting about it won't help you heal. Let it go. Let it go." As if it were a misplaced set of keys, not the entire architecture of my life. They never visited. Not in Germany. Not when I was transferred to Walter Reed. The excuses were always plausible on the surface. The flight was too expensive. They couldn't get time off work. Mark's kids had the flu. But the message was clear. My crisis was an inconvenience. My brother's new kitchen backsplash was a priority. I was eventually discharged to a dreary outpatient barracks, a place for wounded soldiers to exist in a holding pattern of physical therapy appointments and VA bureaucracy. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. The pain in my leg was a constant grinding reminder of my powerlessness. I'd spend hours staring at the cracked ceiling, the phone silent on my bedside table. This was my lowest point. Not in the dirt of Afghanistan, but in this beige, anonymous room, utterly and completely alone. One afternoon, there was a soft knock on the door. I ignored it. It came again, more insistent. With a groan, I hobbled over on my crutches and pulled it open. A woman stood there, her face etched with a familiar kindness. She was older, with graying hair pulled back in a messy bun. She held a large casserole dish wrapped in a towel. "Alex?" she asked, her eyes scanning my face, then my leg. "I'm Sarah Jenkins. I lived next door to your grandmother for 30 years. The name registered instantly. Sarah, Grandma's friend. The one who brought her soup and sat with her on the porch. "I heard you were back," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry. About everything." She pushed the casserole into my hands. It was warm. "It's mac and cheese. Your grandmother told me it was your favorite." I didn't know what to say. The simple act of human decency felt so foreign, it almost broke me. I stepped back, letting her in. She looked around the sparse room, her expression pained. "This is no place for you," she said softly. "You should be home." "I don't have one anymore," I said, the words tasting like ash. She sat down on the edge of the other cot, her hands twisting in her lap. "Alex, what they did, it was a crime. Your grandmother would be horrified. She loved you so much. That house, it was her love for you made into wooden nails." Her eyes filled with tears. "She fought him, you know, your father. He started in on her the moment she got sick, talking about a reverse mortgage, about selling. She refused. Every time. She told me, that house is Alex's anchor. He's going to need it." Sarah then told me about the sale. It wasn't a normal sale on the open market. It was a quick, quiet cash deal to a local developer, a golfing buddy of my father's. The price was laughably low. She told me about the estate sale, which was just a junk removal truck that backed into the driveway and hauled everything away. "I saw your things on the curb, Alex. Boxes marked attic. I tried to stop them. Your father's wife. She told me it was all just old stuff, that you wouldn't want it. My mother. Not my stepmother, my own mother. The enabler. The one who smoothed everything over." I couldn't save much, Sarah continued, her voice thick with regret. She pointed to a cardboard box she'd set by the door, but I grabbed what I could before they threw it in the truck. Later, after she left, I opened the box. Inside, nestled amongst old photo albums, was a stack of my grandmother's favorite books, a tarnished silver locket, and a worn leather-bound journal. I opened it. Her familiar looping cursive filled the pages. And there it was, documented in meticulous detail, every conversation with my father, every time he pressured her, every refusal she gave. October 12th, she wrote. David came by again, pushing me to sign papers, power of attorney. He says it's to help manage my bills, but I see the look in his eye when he talks about the house. He sees dollar signs. I see Alex's future. I told him no. November 3rd. He brought Mark. They used the children as leverage. Think of your great-grandchildren, Mom. They need a safe place to grow up. As if Alex isn't my grandchild. As if his safety doesn't matter. The last entry was dated 2 days before she died. Her handwriting was shaky, barely legible. David has the papers. I don't know how. I was too tired to fight. He says it's for the best. God forgive him. God protect my Alex. That was the moment the grief and the rage coalesced into something else. Not vengeance. Clarity. The cold, precise clarity of a mission objective. My father hadn't just taken advantage of a sick old woman. He had committed fraud. He had used a forged or coerced power of attorney to liquidate an asset that was promised to me against her explicit documented wishes. The soldier in me took over. The part of me that was broken and grieving was put on a shelf. The part that understood strategy, evidence, and execution came to the forefront. I was no longer a son betrayed. I was an operator with a target. And the target was accountability. My first call was to a number Sarah had given me, a lawyer. A retired JAG officer who now ran a small private practice specializing in veteran affairs and estate litigation. His name was Ben Carter. His voice was gravelly, no nonsense. "Sergeant," he said, after I spent 20 minutes laying out the facts as I knew them. "This isn't a family squabble over an inheritance. Based on what you're telling me, and the existence of that journal, this is potentially conspiracy to commit fraud, tortious interference with inheritance, and financial elder abuse. This is not a matter for a family therapist. This is a matter for the courts." The words were a balm. They gave my anger a name, a structure, a legal framework. Ben told me what to do: stop all direct communication with my family. Every call, every text, every email was to be forwarded to him. He would be my firewall. He told me to gather every piece of correspondence I had. The initial email from my father. My mother's placating texts. Mark's dismissive replies. I organized them by date and time, just like an after-action report. "The journal is our keystone," Ben explained over the phone, "but we need to build a fortress around it." The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and physical therapy. The two became intertwined in my mind. Each painful stretch in the PT room, pushing my reconstructed leg to bend another degree, felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. Each document I signed for Ben, each record he subpoenaed, felt like another brick in the fortress he was building. We started with the will. My grandmother's lawyer, a sleepy old man in a dusty downtown office, confirmed it. The house and its contents were left to me, solely and explicitly. Ben had the will officially filed with the probate court, a formal declaration of my claim. Next, the sale of the house. Ben's office subpoenaed the records from the county clerk. Just as Sarah had said, it was a cash sale, significantly under market value, to a shell LLC owned by my father's developer friend. Then came the bank records. Ben filed a motion to get temporary access to my father's and my grandmother's accounts for the period in question. It was all there, a neat and tidy roadmap of their crime. The money from the house sale deposited into my grandmother's account, which my father now controlled via the power of attorney. 2 days later, a wire transfer for almost the entire amount from that account to my father's personal account, labeled estate management fee. And the very next day, a wire transfer from my father's account to my brother, Mark, for an amount that just happened to match the down payment on his new house in the suburbs. "It's arrogant," Ben said, looking over the bank statements on his desk. "They didn't even try to hide it. They were so convinced you would just be the strong one and absorb it. They never imagined you'd fight back." While Ben assembled the legal artillery, I focused on my own war. Physical therapy was my new battlefield. I pushed myself to the brink of pain and beyond. The therapist worried I was overdoing it. But every agonizing step I took on the treadmill, every pound I added to the leg press, was a declaration of intent. I was learning to stand on my own again, literally and figuratively. The day I walked out of the PT clinic without a cane for the first time, I felt a surge of power that had nothing to do with anger. It was the feeling of taking back control. The first shot was fired without a sound. It was a letter from Ben's office, delivered via certified mail to my father, my brother, and the developer. It was a formal notice of litigation, outlining our claims: fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, tortious interference. It informed them that all assets related to the sale were being frozen pending a court hearing. The phone calls started almost immediately. First, my mother. Her voice was a frantic, weeping mess. "Alex, what are you doing? Your father got a letter from a lawyer. You're suing us? How could you do this to your own family?" I listened, my heart a cold, steady drum. "The lawyer is handling all communication from now on, Mom," I said, the words feeling foreign and rehearsed. "But this is family. We can work this out. You had your chance to work this out when you let Dad sell my house and throw my life on the curb," I replied. And for the first time, she had no response. I hung up the phone. Next was my father. He didn't yell, not at first. His voice was low, seething with a rage that was far more terrifying than any shouting. "You have no idea what you've just done," he said. "You are going to tear this family apart over an old house. After everything we have done for you." "What have you done for me?" I asked, the question genuine. I wanted to know what he thought the answer was. He sputtered. "We raised you. We supported you. You raised me to be self-sufficient so you could pour all your resources into Mark," I stated, not as an accusation, but as a fact. "You taught me to be strong so I wouldn't be a burden. Now you're angry because I'm finally using that strength for myself." Silence. Then the shouting started. Ungrateful. Disrespectful. I let him yell. When he was finished, I just said, "Ben Carter is my legal counsel. Please contact him," and disconnected the call. The final call was from Mark. It was the one I dreaded most. He was crying, not the crocodile tears of a manipulator, but the panicked sobs of a cornered child. "Alex, they're going to take my house away. My kids. Where are my kids going to live? You can't do this to me, man. I'm your brother." "And I'm yours," I said, my voice quiet. "Did you think about that when you cashed the check? Did you think about where I was going to live when I came home from a war zone, broken? Or did you just see a solution to your problem and assume I'd figure it out?" "It wasn't like that," he insisted. "Dad said it was the only way." "Then Dad can fix it," I said. That was enough. I ended the call and sat in the quiet of my room, the silence a heavy blanket. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. But beneath the hollowness, there was a bedrock of resolve. This was the necessary surgery, painful but required to remove the cancer. Ben advised one final meeting. "A settlement conference," he called it. "We present them with our terms. It gives them one last chance to avoid a public trial and potential criminal charges." He booked a conference room at his firm, Neutral Ground. The invitation was simple: a meeting to discuss a potential resolution. They accepted. They still believed they could talk their way out of it. They still saw me as the compliant boy, not the man I had become. The conference room was all glass and polished mahogany, a sterile arena for a family's immolation. My father, my mother, and my brother sat on one side of the long table. They looked smaller here, stripped of their home field advantage. My father wore his best suit, a limp armor of respectability. My mother clutched a tissue in her hand, her face pale. Mark just stared at the table, his golden boy charm evaporated, leaving only a frightened, entitled man. I sat opposite them, with Ben Carter by my side. I wore my uniform. Not the dress blues, but the everyday service uniform. I wanted them to see the man they had sent away, the man they had betrayed. My father started, attempting to take control, as he always did. Alex, this has gone far enough. We are a family. Whatever grievances you have, we can resolve them right now. There is no need for lawyers and threats. Ben held up a hand, a quiet gesture that nonetheless silenced the room. Mr. Harrison, he began, his voice calm and lethal. This is not a negotiation based on sentiment. This is a review of facts. Let's begin. For the next 30 minutes, Ben laid out our case with the dispassionate precision of a surgeon. He projected documents onto a large screen at the end of the room. First, a copy of my grandmother's will, with the clause leaving the house to me, highlighted in yellow. Then, the timeline. My deployment date. The date my father coerced my grandmother into signing the power of attorney, cross-referenced with her medical records, showing she was heavily medicated and not of sound mind. The date of the undermarket sale to his friend's LLC. The bank statements, showing the clean, undeniable trail of money from the sale, to my father, to my brother. He put up a sworn affidavit from Sarah Jenkins, detailing my grandmother's repeated refusals to sell and the conversation with my mother during the estate sale. He even had satellite images of the junk truck in the driveway. With every new slide, my family seemed to shrink. My mother's quiet sobs turned into ragged gasps. Mark put his head in his hands. My father's face went from indignant red to a waxy, bloodless white. Finally, Ben put up the last slide. It was a list of potential criminal charges in our state. Financial elder abuse, a felony. Forgery, a felony. Conspiracy to commit fraud, a felony. The district attorney's office has expressed significant interest in this case, Ben said mildly, especially given the involvement of a deployed service member. It makes for a very compelling local news story. The threat hung in the air, unspoken but absolute. The ruin of their finances would be nothing compared to the public disgrace, the potential jail time. However, Ben continued, my client is not interested in retribution. He is interested in restitution. He slid a single folder across the table. This is a settlement agreement. It is not negotiable. You have two options. You can sign it, or we can walk out of this room, and I will file our civil suit tomorrow morning, along with a formal criminal complaint. My father opened the folder, his hands trembling. I knew what it said. It stipulated that they, jointly and severally, were to buy back my grandmother's house from the developer at current market value, which had, of course, appreciated. They were to satisfy any and all liens and deliver a clean title to me within 90 days. It also stipulated they were to pay a sum of $50,000 for my destroyed personal property and cover all of my legal fees. My father looked up from the paper, his eyes finally meeting mine. The arrogance was gone. The anger was gone. All that was left was a hollowed-out desperation. "What do you want, Alex?" he asked, his voice a broken whisper. I let the question hang in the air, the silence stretching for an eternity. I thought of my grandmother's hands in the garden, the sound of the porch swing, the promise of a place to be still. "I want my house," I said. The aftermath was quiet but devastating for them. To meet the terms of the settlement, my father had to liquidate his entire retirement portfolio. The financial hit was catastrophic. But the developer, smelling blood, refused to sell the house back for a penny, less than its inflated new value. My father, the man who worshipped at the altar of financial success, was financially neutered. Mark and his wife were forced to sell their dream home after only a few months. The proceeds went directly to my father to help cover the settlement. They moved into a small, cramped apartment across town, the kind of place Mark had always looked down on. Their social circle, which revolved around my father's country club and my sister-in-law's social climbing, evaporated overnight. Shame is a powerful solvent. 90 days later, as stipulated, a set of keys was delivered to Ben's office. I drove to the house that afternoon. It was strange to stand on the curb and look at it. It was mine again, but it felt like a stranger's house. The lawn was overgrown. A for sale sign from the developer was still staked near the driveway, a tombstone from a battle I had won. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air was stale and silent. The rooms were empty, the walls bare. They had stripped it down to the studs in some places. There were no curtains on the windows, no rugs on the floor, no pencil marks on the doorframe. They hadn't just taken the contents. They had taken its soul. I walked through the empty rooms, my footsteps echoing in the silence. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like standing in a beautifully reconstructed tomb. For a moment I felt a crushing wave of despair. What had I even fought for? A hollow shell? Then I saw it. In the corner of the living room, a single cardboard box. The box Sarah had saved for me. I walked over and opened it. My grandmother's journal, the old photos, the tarnished locket. I picked up a photo of her and me, taken on that porch. I was maybe 10 years old, missing a front tooth, beaming. She was laughing. I didn't need their furniture. I didn't need their apologies. I needed this. The foundation. The rebuilding was slow. It started with me, a broom, and a bucket of paint. Then Sarah started showing up with sandwiches and iced tea. Soon after, a few guys from my old unit who lived locally heard I was back and came by on a Saturday with tool belts and a case of beer. A local VFW post, tipped off by Ben Carter, organized a work crew to help with the roof. The house filled up again, not with things, but with people. With laughter. With the easy camaraderie of those who understood what it meant to be broken and put back together. We rebuilt the walls, laid new floors, and planted a new garden. It wasn't my grandmother's house anymore. It was becoming mine. We didn't just restore it, we resurrected it. Each nail hammered was an act of defiance. Each fresh coat of paint, a claim on the future. One evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Her voice was small, hesitant. She offered a quiet, broken apology. It wasn't filled with excuses or justifications. It was just sad. I listened. I didn't offer absolution. I didn't rage. The anger had burned out, leaving behind only the hard, clear lines of a boundary. "I have to go, Mom," I said when she was finished, and I hung up. It wasn't cruelty, it was a conclusion. Months have passed. The house is a home again. The porch swing creaks in the breeze, just as I remembered. The oak tree in the backyard stands tall and strong. I'm standing on that porch now, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I've learned that being the strong one isn't about how much pain you can absorb for other people's comfort. It's not about silently enduring betrayal. True strength is the courage to demand your own worth. It's the discipline to build a boundary and the resolve to hold it, not with anger, but with the unassailable power of consequence. I learned that family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the neighbor who brings you a casserole when you're at your lowest. It's the brothers in arms who show up with hammers and hearts ready to help you rebuild. Family is not an obligation. It is an act of love, freely given and freely returned. It's about who shows up. My story is just one story. But I know I'm not the only one who has been cast in the role of the strong one, the reliable one, the one who will always figure it out. It's a quiet burden, and it can cost you everything if you let it. It can cost you your home, your past, and your future. So I want to ask you, have you ever been in that position? Have you ever had your strength used against you? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me your story. I want to hear it. Let us know where you're watching from, and let's create a space for all the strong ones to finally be heard. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. There are more stories to tell. Stories of quiet battles, of hard-won clarity, and of the moment people decide to stop absorbing the pain and start reclaiming their peace. You are not alone.